What is going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George, our Engos are back with another superstar from the sport of mixed martial arts. UFC lightweight Grant Dawson joins us here on the program. He is ranked number 6 in the USA Today Sports and MMA Junkie rankings. He's facing Bobby Green at the Fight Night coming up here October 7th. Welcome back, Grant. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you for joining us. So it's the Apex for you on the 7th. And coming off those big crowds in Paris, in Singapore, Australia, even that T-Mobile was a fight night here in Las Vegas for Noche UFC. Back at the Apex, how do you feel about that? You're at the top. You guys will get a lot of shine, but was part of you watching fights recently kind of going, man, a nice crowd would have been nice, big crowd?
I would say I go back and forth on it. Honestly, right now, I'm just considering myself this Apex predator because my last like 5 have all been in the Apex. I've come away with wins in the Apex. I'm very comfortable in the Apex. So it only makes sense that my first main event is going to be in the Apex. But I would like to get in front of a crowd. I'll tell you what, though, I was in Paris with Thiago Moises when he fought Benoit, and that crowd was insane. It was so loud. You couldn't coach. You couldn't yell. You couldn't say anything. We couldn't hear each other. Like it was so crazy loud. It was absolutely insane. And there was a part of me that was like, man, I want to feel this again in a fight. But there's another part of me that was like, man, this is crazy. And I don't know if I'd be able to hear anything. So I go back and forth on it.
So what would you do if you were presented with the choice? Would you sacrifice maybe hearing your coaches, but getting lifted by the crowd? Let's just say you had a choice and you had to make it. What would you do? Because you have put in your time at the Apex.
It it really doesn't matter to me. If we're talking same opponent and I can choose either, it really doesn't matter to me. If we're going off of purely just would I rather fight in the Apex or in front of a crowd, I'd rather fight in the Apex.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
man. Yeah, look, the crowd is great. I love it. And they definitely have their place. I'll get more followers fighting in front of a crowd. I'll get more hyped up fighting in front of a crowd. But when you're fighting guys at this level, being able to hear your coach and being able to have them coach you through things is such a cheat code. I absolutely think it's a huge advantage for me to fight in the Apex.
You're 20-1 or something like that. Like you kind of have this dialed down. It's not like you're 1-20. What is it that you're capturing from the coaches? Because it looks like you're handling business perfectly.
I think we go in with pretty much the same game plan, but each coach brings something unique where, Mike has really been helping me not get hit. He's helping me move my feet, set up my takedowns the way that I need to set them up with very minimal risk to them. And then,
Yeah.
and Alves is just, he's getting my feet right. He's getting my hands right. He's getting my elbows right. Both coaches bring absolute great stuff to my game, and just being able to hear them and reassuring me through the game plan and what should I say, having them help me adjust to the fly is such a big cheat code.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? When you explain it like that, I side with you because at the end of the day, this is a very difficult sport. It's very cutthroat. One loss can send you tumbling down the rankings. And if you have something down and it's working, then I suppose that trumps the that great feeling you might get from some sort of a Coliseum type setting. Um, I wanted to ask you this, Grant. Bobby Green, he's not ranked ahead of you, but he's pretty damn popular. He's an OG. He's been around for a long time. Is that kind of like your type of matchup where maybe you had to go down in the rankings, but at the same time, this guy, he, like I say, he brings a lot to the table with his popularity, his style, his name.
Yeah, rankings other than champion rankings are really just made up. It really doesn't matter. We just saw at 125 a debut guy come in and fight the top 10 in the world and win. So rankings to me doesn't make any difference. I'm not fighting backwards in this fight. I'm not fighting forward. I'm just fighting. That's what it is. Islam Makhachev got a title shot off of beating Bobby Green. So anything can happen in this sport. Bobby Green, if I'm not on my game and if I don't respect him like he deserves to be respected, I'm going to be looking up at him off of my back, getting woken up by the referee. I know how dangerous he is. I know how much experience he has. I know what a big following he has. I am ready for a very, very competitive and a very, very strong fight. I don't like it when people are like, oh, you're fighting behind. There is no fighting behind. We're just fighting. That's it. The only spot that matters is who's champion. That is really the only thing that matters.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I kind of partially disagree. I see a lot of fighters really making their stance and digging their heels that they only want to fight up because they already fought back. So I don't know if it has to do with just getting them closer to the title or if there's something monetary about it. I mean, you're right. It's just a fight, and handling your business is the important thing, staying on win streaks. But I do see a lot of fighters kind of taking that stance, and I guess that's why I asked. But I'm even more curious about something else. Who was the 125er that just beat a ranked guy?
I can't remember his name.
Are you thinking about Felipe Dos Santos, who gave a hell of a fight to Manel Kopp?
No. This was
okay.
ago. El, do you know who I'm talking about? That you know what I mean though, right? He looked like
Ursig.
Ursig?
Ursig is his last name.
Ursig.
He's good.
Ursig is his last name, and he came in on short notice and fought. Who did he fight? Do you remember?
I'm looking it up. They look the same. They look like different versions of the same.
Sure. Maybe it was top 15. Maybe it wasn't top. Steve Ursig.
He was number. He fought David Dvorak.
Yeah, that's right. Steve Ursig fought David Dvorak, or however you say his name, and won a decision. Dvorak and won a decision against him, and now he's in the rankings, right?
Should be.
I mean, so that and now he's fighting Matt Schnell. So like that's what I mean, where it's like if Bobby beats me, he's number 10 in the world. You know, there is no fighting backwards, in my opinion. I do see what you're saying though, where guys are like, I want to fight forward so I can fight for the title. It's just fighting to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good attitude to have, because a lot of them, I think, they dig their heels in, they take their stance, and the next thing you know, they're getting passed over, and the sport just moves on. Like you know, I'm sure you know this. And sometimes you just have to take these opportunities. You'll reach a point at some point where you do have leverage. Usually that comes when you're like a contender or a champion. But heck, you even see the champions going through this. Aljo is begging for an immediate rematch. You know, Israel, he wants one too, but might he get it? Might he not? I don't know. It's up to the brass, and that part can be very, very frustrating, I'm sure, for fighters, for fans.
Another big thing about it too is I've been in a situation before where I fought Mark Madsen, and then it was a 9-month layoff in between fights, and I was begging for a fight. I was asking.
That's right. That was like last November after you had gotten married, right? You got married a week after as well? Yeah.
Yeah, I got married on the 20th. I fought him on the 5th. And then on the 21st, literally on the plane, I texted my manager and was like, look, let's find a fight, man. Like, let's get this going. I want to win and then go on our honeymoon. And it was 9 months later. And so I just fought Demir. They offer me a main event spot for way more money. Like, there's no way I'm turning down a fight like this. I don't care if it's in front of me, behind me, left to me, up to me. Like, I'm fighting. I'm gonna take the fight. I'm gonna take this main event, take this opportunity. I absolutely love the situation that I'm in right now.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me turn it over to Goes. What do you have for Grant Dawson, who's got that big fight coming up against Bobby Green on October 7th, UFC Fight Night here in Vegas?
Grant, so a fighter like Bobby Green that can throw from so many different angles, still with power, how do you prepare for somebody like that? Is that a thing where you bring somebody in and try and mimic that style? I know you mentioned Mike Brown and what he's trying to do with you to not get hit as much. How do you approach a guy that's so unconventional?
I think we have guys that can mimic him. I do think it's a little bit more awkward, and you're never gonna quite get the exact replica of what you're trying to get. But I think we have a couple of guys that do a really good job mimicking him. One of my very close friends, Dakota Bush, has been up here for this whole camp, has been helping me get ready. And he's a world-class training partner because he's somebody that can go really, really hard and you're never worried about him hurting you. He can mimic guys really well. He's fighting with his hands down and still not getting hit well. So I think we got the guys that can mimic him. You're never going to get it spot on. And I think a big part of it is just knowing who I am and knowing what my game plan is going to be, and knowing that he can bring in as many wrestlers as he wants. They're not the same as me. It's really hard to mimic what I'm doing on top, because until you feel what I'm doing on top, it's so hard to understand what's actually going on.
I'm going to use a basketball analogy for this next question. When you would play one-on-one with a buddy, at first you're pretty technical, and then somehow you just kind of end up playing off of what your other friend is playing. And sometimes it just becomes fun, just hawking up threes, driving to the basket, just doing whatever. Do you ever have any concern, again, bringing up Mike Brown and him trying to dial things in to, if it's not a huge crowd, but there are people there, people start cheering, fight of the night. Do you ever get concerned getting wrapped up into the way Bobby Green fights and maybe giving back some of what he's given to you?
Nah, not really. I know how I fight. I know what my game plan is, and I'm very, very disciplined when it comes to the game plan. I'm very good at sticking to the game plan. I'm very good at adjusting on the fly while also making sure those adjustments fit into the game plan. Now, if Bobby can stuff every single one of my takedowns, I might have to bite down on my mouthpiece, put my hands up, and start swinging leather, because at the end of the day, I want to win. I don't care if it's by submission, by knockout, or even by decision striking the whole time. I want to win, and we do have a fallback plan if I can't get the takedown. But he's got to show me first that he's going to be able to stuff 100 takedowns in the next 25 minutes.
I know Bobby likes to talk in the middle of the fight. What do you think of that? Does that pull out a different gear out of you? Is it annoying? What do you think? How do you think you'll react to that?
I was actually just talking about this this morning. I really don't think it's going to bug me. I really don't think that it's going to get under my skin. I know that Bobby is a nice guy. I know that Bobby's a good dude. I've got a couple of stories about me and Bobby, so I know that he's a good guy. I know he's trying to get into my head and sell the fight, and that's just how he fights. So I don't really take it personally. I don't think that he's, malicious about the things he's saying. I think he's just trying to he's trying to create a strategy, just the same as if somebody's trying to jab me in the face. I'm more worried about him hitting me than hurting my feelings.
Can you share one of them stories?
I've got two of them, actually, but the first one and the bigger one that I know Bobby is a good guy. When I was in high school, my favorite thing to watch other than UFC was Bully Beatdown with Jason Mayhem Miller. Yeah. And I was this high school kid. All I wanted to be when I grew up was a UFC fighter. And I messaged every single fighter on the show Bully Beatdown and asked them. I had to know, is this show real or is it fake? I messaged every single one of them, and the only fighter that messaged me back was Bobby Green. Bobby Green messaged me back, told me that it was real. I don't know if maybe he was lying, but told me it was real. Told me that it was a whole lot of fun, and he got to beat up some bully high schooler on this show, and then said something along the lines of keep following your dreams, kid. You're gonna be a UFC fighter someday. Of course, he had no idea who I was. He was just being nice. I know Bobby Green is a good person. I know he's a good guy. All of that talk is just to make more money, and I'm all for it. Make all the money you can, man. I hope he makes $10 million in his lifetime.
I'm glad I asked that question. That's a cool story. I totally forgot about that show.
Yeah, I wish it was still around. That show was awesome, man. Like, to be able, a bunch of UFC fighters getting to go in and beat up a bunch of high schooler jerks. I remember
that. I remember some did look like they could be fake, but some look like they just needed a good ass whooping. But I really liked that show. Yeah, I totally forgot about it. I can't believe that as soon as you said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Now, who are some of the ones that you wrote that didn't answer that because I can't remember who was on, honestly.
Eddie Alvarez was on one of them. I messaged Jason Mayhem Miller. He was the host, but he also did one of the shows. I messaged who was the other one? Tyrone Woodley was on it. Michelle Watterson was on it, although I did not message her because I was in high school and afraid of women. So I didn't. There was one more big one that I absolutely loved. I said Eddie Alvarez. There's one more big one that I messaged, and I was really hoping he messaged me back, but he didn't. Who was it? I can't remember. I can't remember who the other biggest name was, but yeah, there was quite a few of them, and I messaged a lot of them.
this story was so good. I'm just gonna go for it. Can you tell us the other story? This one was a good one. Can you match it?
Oh, it's nothing insane. We have the same manager, and after my fight with, I think it was Jared Gordon. I think it was Jared Gordon. We were on the same card, I believe, and he came in, or maybe he was there. He came into the hotel room and had some pizza with us, and he was just super nice and very respectful. So like, not as nearly as cool of a story. I know the dude's a good guy. I know he is. I know he's gonna try to sell the fight. I know he's gonna try to get in my head, but I know he's a good guy. He ain't fooling me.
All right. Well, you're right. The first story was better. No, I'm just kidding. But it also bought me some time because I'm a multitasker, Grant Dawson. So check this out. I looked up Bully Beatdown. They had John McCarthy, Jake Shields, John Murphy, Michael Westbrook. Any of those ring? Connor Hune, Andre Arlovsky, Quinn Mulhern, Ricky Legier, Jeremy Horn. Any Joe Riggs, any of those? Daniel Cormier
Jeremy
was
Horn.
on there. Jeremy Horn. Okay. Shit, I forgot.
Jeremy Horn was
Daniel
the guy
Cormier
that
was on there. Did you guys know that?
I actually don't remember him being on there.
I don't remember that either.
Because he did 3 seasons, and it says Daniel Cormier.
I saw
here
every single episode.
It says Darren Cruikshank as well. That was the last one. All right. Bunch of divas there, Alvarez and Woodley and the rest of them. They don't answer their fans, but Bobby Green did.
Yeah,
cool
and Jeremy
story.
Horn too. He was such a big deal when I was a kid.
Yeah. Grant, let me ask you one more, and then we'll let you go here. You're number 10 in the UFC lightweight rankings. That makes me sick to my stomach. I just told you that at USA Today Sports, you're number 6. Do you agree with 6? Does that sound about right? You want me to name off the other ones, and then you tell me if that makes sense or if I'm crazy because I have something to do with them. You ready?
Yeah. I mean, I have it memorized, but yeah, go ahead.
Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira.
Oh, no.
Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Beneil Dariush, and number 6 is Grant Dawson. Behind you is Rafael Fiziev at number 7. Does those sound about right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, dude, I think that the rankings are kind of askew, you could say. I do think that there are some guys like Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler's 2 and 4 in the UFC, I believe, or maybe 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But he's fighting good guys. Like I understand it. I fought good guys that don't have the hype that these other guys have. I actually think that I will get ranked higher beating Bobby Green than I will for beating like Damir Ismagulov, because he's such a big fan. He's such a fan favorite. He's a veteran. He's been in the top 15 for years. I do think a big impressive win over him might push me to 9, maybe even 8. After Bobby Green, obviously I'm only focused on Bobby Green, but after Bobby Green, we're looking to fight against Dan Hooker, assuming everything goes well. And I think that will be one of my breakout performances.
And I don't think you should be behind Hooker in the UFC rankings either.
I do agree with that one, because we both fought in the same like 30 days ish, and he went to a split decision against his guy, and I went to a unanimous 30-26 fight against Damir. So I do agree with you that I should be ranked above Hooker.
Your overall record is very impressive. Your UFC record is very impressive. And you have a streak going. And that's the other thing, is you don't lose rounds too often. You thump people pretty damn good. And I would honestly say that I don't think Fiziev, Gamron, or Sarukian should be ahead of you. All of them have taken an L in the past couple years at some point, which you haven't. So I would even, like I say, make an argument that you should be ahead of them, because your record's either just as impressive or more impressive than theirs as well. I don't understand what it is that they may have on you, honestly. But I'm very passionate about rankings, and that's why when I see it and fighters want to chat a little bit about it, I'll bring it up.
The rankings, man. You're all about the rankings. What's the worst weight class? What's the worst weight class rank wise, do you think? Like that just makes no sense why he's here and they's there. What's the
In the
worst one?
UFC?
Yeah.
Let me see. I don't look at them too often, but just in looking at them right now, I would say what's glaring is,
I want to say Bobby Green, this might have happened to him. Every now and again in the UFC rankings, they'll have one guy ranked back to back where the guy below just beat the guy
yes.
ahead of him, which
Yep.
makes no sense at all. Like, I don't know
Yep.
how you can come to that conclusion.
You want to know
Okay.
like the one that doesn't make any sense to me is when just for example, this was a long time ago. Dustin beat what was it? Connor beat somebody or lost to somebody and was ranked higher than him in pound for pound, but lower than him in their actual weight class. And the pound for pound list makes zero sense to me. I can't remember who he fought, but he was lower than somebody in his own weight class and then higher than him on the pound for pound list. Made no sense to me at all.
I think what usually has to do with that is in pound for pound, you are giving them a little bit more credit if they've tested themselves at a division higher, or even
Sure.
if they've had a successful run below. And so you tend to give them a little bit of credit for that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be two different things altogether. It all depends on, who it is and what kind of successes either one of them have had. In fact, we just recently had something like that. Strickland, a lot of people forget he was actually a pretty damn good welterweight.
Mhm.
Like he had an impressive record as a welterweight before moving up to middleweight, and then he technically won one fight last year as a light heavyweight because he took a late notice. So he's succeeding in 3 different weight classes, and so
Right.
now he takes away Israel Adesanya and beats him. And I usually don't like to overreact. Granted, he mauled him for five rounds, and he's tested himself in different divisions, whereas Israel kind of went up one time and was unsuccessful against Blachowicz. But usually I don't like to if somebody comes out of nowhere and you beat an incumbent, it doesn't mean you have to reflect them in the pound for pound, but definitely within your weight class. If Strickland's the champ, he should be number 1 no matter what.
Right.
But in pound for pound, sometimes there's a little bit of a different type of leniency. It all depends on how busy you've been staying.
Pound for pound is more like what your legacy is. Like
Kinda,
how good
yeah.
legacy than how good are you as a fighter right now?
Yep. And those guys are they're all fighting the top fighters in the world.
Right.
So, there's something to a quality win and a quality loss. Who are you losing to? You know what I mean? If you lost to the number 1 and you're the number 2, it's hard to really say you need to tumble down the rankings.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Pound for pound though is the most like opinionary rankings, because like at least in the same weight class, I think this guy will win, and this is why I think he'll win, because he does this, this, and this, and this guy struggles with this, this, and this. But then you go like you got Henry Cejudo, just for example, Henry Cejudo's number 2 pound for pound, and Francis Ngannou's number 5 pound for pound, and it's like, dude, Francis would step on Henry Cejudo and squish him like a bug, just it's all just opinion in the pound for pound list.
Yeah. Another Dana White Contender Series fighter, folks, is making noise. Grant Dawson here, who's going to be fighting Bobby Green. And Grant, I would just say this. I've loved everything I heard today, man. This was really, really cool hearing you talk about your corner, connecting with them and everything. But I'm telling you, I think unless you think you still need more work to do, you beat Bobby Green. I don't see why you shouldn't be shouting the guys at the top. It sounded like you're willing to take Dan Hooker, and that's a good fight. But I think you've already, you're at fight number 3 guy, number 2 guy, or something right before the title or whatever. But what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to get Tony Ferguson. He won 12 in a row and didn't get that title shot. One was his fault because he hurt himself. But Rafael Assunção, another American top team guy, an affiliate of you guys, he won like 8 in a row. Beneil, he won like 8 in a row. And sometimes if you get too caught up in that, I see a championship resume here in front of me. So hopefully you'll start campaigning for that soon.
Yeah, man, that is the goal. The end goal is to be a world champion. My only concern is the top level guys. They don't really like fighting outside of their own little pool. My teammate Arman Sarukian is having trouble finding a fight up in that area too. So I think staying active It's the most important thing. And then this right under that is fighting the right guys to get me to that title shot. But if it comes down to waiting for a fight, the right high level fight, or staying active, I think staying active for me is better.
Okay. Yeah. Well, like you said, Makhachev has pretty much got to where he's at along the same ways of the route you're taking. If it's
Right.
Green and Hooker next, that's what got him to the title shot, and then he capitalized when it was his time.
I completely agree. As long as I keep winning, I don't think that they'll be able to deny me much longer. I think that by the end of 2025, we will have a new champion, and his name will be Grant Dawson.
That's what's up.
Nice.
Thanks, Grant, for the time.
Thank you, guys. I can't wait to get this fight going. I can't wait to get this this huge win for me and shoot myself up to the top of the rankings.
There you go. All right. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, guys.